Bet horse racing on DRF Bets. We'll match your first deposit of $200. Get free expert picks and past performances, plus weekly cash back. All from Daily Racing Form, the most trusted name in horse racing. Dan Illman, Mike Beer for Breeders' Cup Prep Recap. We're going to take a look at a major prep for the Distaff division. Malathot was the favorite in the Spinster at Keeneland, where the Breeders' Cup's going to be in 2022, and she did not disappoint for Todd Pletcher. Let's break from the gate in the Spinster, going 1 1/8 miles. Malathot breaks from the inside post. Malathot is far from a burner. She didn't need to be a burner in this race. The pace was always going to be solid because you had the presence of Latruska.
Yeah, Latruska is going to go forward in this race. She's going to go up there with a couple of other horses, actually. They don't go that fast, but they are up there together. Malathot is just, sliding right in behind those horses. She's going to sit in there for as long as she can. She'll come to their outside around the turn, Dan, and then she takes over pretty quickly in here. It's a pretty comprehensive win for this filly.
She's sitting a very nice trip in behind these horses. Latruska now in between has taken the lead off of the Sharp Played Hard with the outsider Princess of Cairo sitting in third. John Velasquez just has to be licking his chops here, tracking these three. Malathot is handy in this spot, and I think that's a very good sign. Ever since she's had blinkers, she's been able to stay just a little bit closer.
Yeah, that's a good point. She can just, sort of make her own trip these days. Again, this pace wasn't fast, so it's not like she had to work super hard to keep up with these horses, but she does keep up. Johnny V gets her into the clear now. She's going to range up to these leaders and just really take over, pretty easily here, Dan. This horse on the lead, Latruska, this isn't the Latruska of 2021. There's really no fight when Malathot comes for it.
And that's the disappointing thing of this race. For a brief instant, Army Wife on the outside, a horse that occasionally can pop a big race, looms outside of Malathot, but Malathot quickly dispatches of her. She shows her class. She goes about her business. She wins by 5. This is exactly what Todd Pletcher, I think, wanted to see from a prep, because I don't think Malathot really exerted herself that much. She had always run well at Keeneland. I think it's exactly what Todd drew up.
I agree with you on that count 100%, Dan. It's a perfect prep for her. She got a good trip. She didn't have to work all that hard. Again, even when she came for Latruska, a horse who in the past would have really, that could have been a real throwdown through the stretch. It wasn't for Malathot. She took over easily, and she didn't have to get all in to win this race. This was a perfect prep. The Buyer's only a 98, but earlier this year, she ran a 105. She ran a 106. She can run faster if she needs to, and she likes Keeneland.
And she is going to be a major threat in the Breeders' Cup Distaff, obviously, along with her younger stablemate Nest. Clary Air could be back after a disappointing performance where she had an excuse. She supposedly cut her tongue. Yep. Search results have been very solid all year long. It really looks like a strong distaff this year. Army Wife got a nice trip and ride from Luis Saez. They settled at the back. There was a contested pace up front. They tried to follow Malathot's cover. They weren't good enough. Army Wife might show up in the Breeders' Cup Distaff. She'll be a big price in that race. And I think this is the best she can do, and she was no match for Malathot.
I agree. They got her another grade 1 place in there. She was grade 1 placed a couple of times as a 3-year-old. They pick up another one here in a race where, she's a big price that day, 22-1, not good enough. She'll be an even bigger price if they do decide to try their luck at the Breeders' Cup. We'll see what she can do.
Played Hard gets an important grade 1 placing for her future as a broodmare, but she looked like she was all done after a half mile. Were you surprised how aggressive Joelle was with her leaving the gate?
No, I actually figured they would go forward. I don't see why you would step her up into a grade 1. She was coming off of a career best performance in a grade 3. You're going to step her up to the top level. You got to use her speed. She's a fast horse. They went. I was actually, Dan, to be honest with you, a little surprised they didn't go even more aggressively with her. Even when Latruska came up to challenge her, they sort of were happy to concede to that horse and sort of slip back into the pocket up the backstretch. I think they might have been better served going on with it.
And now the elephant in the room, Latruska, who has been a superstar throughout her career, came back with a couple of wins to start off 2022 and just hasn't looked the same in her last few races. Maybe the Ogden Phipps was the sign. She was caught up in a speed duel, but she lost the speed duel to Search Results, who ended up running third behind Clariere and Malathot. And then at Saratoga, she just wasn't as good as Malathaat on that day. And here she showed and offered no resistance whatsoever. If she shows up in the Breeders' Cup, is she merely a pace factor?
It would seem that way right now. I mean, it's hard to have a lot of confidence in her, all of a sudden turning things around come Breeders' Cup Distaff Day, Dan. I mean, as you already pointed out, the Phipps was a terrible performance, even with the duel factored in. When they came back in the Personal Ensign right before this race, she did earn a triple-digit buyer, and she finished third in that race. But it was sort of a similar situation to this one. She was on the lead. Malathaat came to challenge her, or search results rather, first, and she just didn't really put up much of a fight, and that's not Latruska.
Let's get a closer look at Malathaat. 3 for 3 at Keeneland. So it's nice to know she handles the course where the Breeders' Cup will be held in 2022. She has everything going for her. The beautiful pedigree curling out of the classy Dreaming of Julia. It's Pletcher, it's Velasquez, and she's just a consistent, solid runner. Nest might go into the Breeders' Cup Distaff as a slight favorite because of her impressive performances and her classic placing against males earlier this year. But you should never give Malathaat short shrift, because if Nest stubs her toe a bit, Malathaat will be nipping at her heels.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, as good as Nest has been, and she has been really good, she might still have to take a little bit of a step forward come the day of the Breeders' Cup Distaff. If Malathaat shows up and runs her good race, Clairiere comes back to form and runs her good race. You've already mentioned Search Results, who's been in really good form and has speed. I like Nest as much as anybody. I think she might have to improve a little bit if she's going to beat those three older fillies.
Only a 98 buyer for Malathaat in this race, but she has run figures of 105 and 106 this year. She seems more focused with the blinkers on, and she's always a threat for Todd Pletcher. Here are the prices for the Spinster. No surprise for Malathaat, who is odds on. Army Wife was the surprise. She was 22 to 1 and completed the exacta. Played hard, came back for third as Latruska disappointed again. Malathaat, a strong contender in what is shaping up to be a wow edition of the Breeders' Cup Distaff.